Okay, welcome to the Sumer Sports Show. I'm here with Thomas Dimitroff, the CEO of Sumer Sports. I'm Eric Eager, one of the VPs at Sumer Sports. It has been a kind of mellow week relative to last week. At this time last week, Thomas, we had just gotten done. It had been the Vrabel show. We got done with the show. Nick Saban retired. Then Bill Belichick was on his way out. Of New England. Of course, then we had the weekend of games. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, where, Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys, they bowed out at the hands of the Green Bay Packers. And then on Monday, Tampa Bay, Todd Bowles' Bucks, they go and they upset at home the Philadelphia Eagles, Nick Sirianni, leaving us with some questions. Thomas, a whirlwind of a weekend, but it kind of a tame. We haven't had any hirings really over the last few days. What's your take right now?
I agree with you, kind of tame, but remember, Sumer Scout and all of our scouting staff, the pro scouting staff has been here, and we're working on free agents, going through our free agency meetings for the last 3 days intensely. So while you've been just partying, kicking back there, looking at, the world of numbers and doing some coding or whatever else you're doing when you roll up your sleeves to help out your group, which I think is great, even for a VP of your stature. We were rocking and rolling. Like, look, this business is just starting to fly with all of our opportunities to put together this Sumer scouting system, which is a combination of probably 2,300 pro grades, subjective grades, and reports, along with the objective side of what we're doing in Sumer, as well as the top 800 draft players, right? That's a big deal for us. We're excited about it, and that's what we've been working on, just so you know. Make sure that we're out there talking about that a little bit too.
Yeah, it's so much fun to come out of the office, of my office, and just kind of listen to you guys. I've been watching football and playing football and modeling football kind of my whole life, but it's always cool to kind of listen to you and your contemporaries talk and scout players and sort of talk about what you're looking for in players. It always kind of gives me an idea of what I should be looking for sort of in a player. We have colleagues in here. People forget it is my 38th birthday today. Udit and I'm wearing a shirt to match. We have Whale Capper, one of my good friends, Drew Dinsick, and some others here. So Thomas, you're getting me here on as I age a little older. I have noticed a little bit that I have gotten a few more grays in my beard today. I don't know if that came just because of today, but it is one of the reasons, Thomas, that I'm no longer a Vikings fan is they did lose the conference championship game on my birthday 3 times as a kid. And somebody tweeted out today that they did lose to your Falcons on my 13th birthday in the NFC championship game all those years ago. I always remember that. It's 25th anniversary today of that game.
Look, I want to interject here. Udit, my brother, you do great work for us. Part of us doing our work together is making sure that you give me a little heads up, like, Thomas, don't be a dumbass and wish our guy here a birthday. That would have been really cool, brotherly teammate thing. So just so you know, next time it might be helpful. But this goes back to, remember, Udit, when we were talking about Champ Kelly and my guy here, birthday boy, let me spiel on for 4 times mentioning Champ Bailey. And then he finally let me catch myself. So,
well, I played that in though because you were in Boulder, you were in Colorado, so you were Champ Bailey. You were feeling you were feeling it there. Look, when you get the only reason everybody knows it's my birthday is because Sean tweeted out, and people, JJ Watt is on this other podcast. I would say, maybe the second most popular podcast behind the hours right now, the Pat McAfee Show. He's on right now talking crap about PFF. Sean Clement tweeted out a picture, the drawn picture of me in that book about PFF, wished me a happy birthday on Twitter. That's why everybody knows it's my birthday. No one else. I'm not one to go advertise that I'm getting older every single day. So you wouldn't have known otherwise, and I would not have advertised that to you otherwise. But
you came in here
thank you for all the nice people in there.
You came in here this morning, 16 degrees in the ATL, like literally, it's not ever in the teens or rarely, and you stroll in with that shirt on, no jacket. You probably even wanted to wear shorts, but like you are full on Midwesty. And I know it's time to move on to football, but I was trying to make it real a little bit here.
It is I'm very much a Midwestern guy. And I don't even, I was, even in Detroit last week where it was cold, I don't even know if I own a jacket anymore. And I didn't have one last week, which was, I had to buy a hat when I got into the stadium. So now I have this Detroit Lions hat. I don't know what to do with it now. Because I don't wear warm clothes all that often. But let's talk about a game that happened that Sunday where the Packers with Jordan Love, a team that you and I have talked about it briefly, a bunch of times this year because of kind of their ascension, right? They kind of started out a team with not that many expectations. I think their market win total was around 7.5. Not that many people expected much out of them. They went into Dallas. They got it to a 27-0 lead, right? Dak Prescott threw a couple interceptions, but Jordan Love was terrific. Dallas kind of made a game of it at the end. They only lost by 16. Dak Prescott, threw for a bunch of yards. A lot of people were sort of, making jokes that he was going to get fired and, Bill Belichick was going to turn the plane around from Atlanta, all this kind of stuff. I know. And that's not funny. We don't want to make fun of, we don't want to, do that. Right. And I think that, a lot of people are now looking and asking questions about Dan Quinn and Mike McCarthy. And I think we take a step back and say, this is the first team in NFL history, Thomas, that has won 3 straight years of 12 wins or more that has not made a conference championship game. And so a math guy like me says, well, it's pretty damn impressive to win 12 or more games 3 years in a row, right? That's a really impressive feat. Obviously, when you're Jerry Jones and you want to win Super Bowls, you haven't won one since 1995, that might not be thought as good enough. But I think when you're the Cowboys and you look at, okay, what's the alternative to Mike McCarthy? The grass isn't always greener. I think teams like the Falcons, I think teams like, that fired their regimes of late are realizing that. When you look at what's going on in Dallas, like, what do you think the thought process is for Jerry Jones right now, looking at the thing with Dak Prescott coming up on a high dollar year, Mike McCarthy, what's going through everybody's head?
Let's call it the way it is. And I said that it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do and talk a whole bunch about Bill Belichick today for no other reason, because, I could go on and rave about the fact that this league and the opportunity to acquire coaches that will never, ever be available again, or the quality of a coach may never be available again in a situation like this, has teams like that. And I'm not answering for anyone, right? I'm not answering for what Jerry and Stephen Jones are thinking, or what Howie Roseman and owner Jeffrey Lurie are thinking in Philly, or, Jacksonville's thinking down there with Trent Baalke, and Shad Khan with regard to their situation, because there's a guy of such stature as Bill Belichick. There's a guy with, other stature. I'm not saying it's equal stature, but a college coach who is a hell of a football coach who's available. Another pro coach, obviously we're talking about Harbaugh and Jim. And then we're also talking about a guy that I have a great deal of respect for, Dan Quinn. And then we also have, you're sitting there with Mike Vrabel out there. It's unbelievable, the bevy of coaches out there. So back to Bill. In these teams that aren't even available yet, you don't think that they are in their boardroom right now saying, my God, first of all, what if we did this? We talk about scenario building all the time, right? It's part of what we're doing. They're running through scenario after scenario. Do this, this, and this, and this. You do this, you have an opportunity to bring this coordinator in, because, a lot of people are assuming wherever Bill goes, one of the very best. You can have your comments on him about being a head coach, but Josh McDaniels is magical at what he does. So they're all of a sudden a guy, a team who hires Bill Belichick is bringing on Bill, who's amazing, and then someone like Josh, who is as well in his world. So anyway, I think it's a big, big deal, and I think it's a real deal. Now, my personal feeling, again, Jerry and Steven, please forgive me because I'm not in your building, but I'm saying my feeling is they may be thinking about something no matter who is available for them in that group, right? They know that there's someone solid. Just because Bill might not be coming there doesn't mean they might not make this move. They've been thinking about this a lot more than Philly has in my mind, right? So let's keep going. Come back at me a little bit.
Yeah. So in my opinion, look, when I look at the Cowboys, right, there are a lot of people that push back. And again, neither one of us has information on the Cowboys right now. So we're just speculating. We're just kind of spitballing on this. I look at Dallas and I think about, Jerry has been the main guy in that building for decades. And what has that really netted them, right? They've won Super Bowls, but Jimmy Johnson was a larger than life guy. And he was the head coach there when Jerry bought the team, right? They bought the team. Jimmy was the guy. He was the one that did the quote unquote train robbery from the Minnesota Vikings and Mike Lynn and got all those draft picks, got the 2 Super Bowls. And once he started to remember when Jacksonville and Carolina came into the league, right? And Jimmy started to flirt a little bit with the Jaguars, right? And what happened? Jerry fired him after 2 winning Super Bowls, right? They brought in Barry Switzer. They won 1 more Super Bowl, but we all know that team wasn't quite as good as the previous ones. And since then, they haven't won anything. Yeah. And it's not for lack of trying, right? They brought in Bill Parcells, who, and the kids these days, they don't get it. But Bill Parcells was Bill Belichick's boss. This is a guy that this is a guy that stature-wise in NFL history, it's Belichick, and then it's a bunch of guys that include Bill Parcells. So he's incorporated people into that building who have the stature like that before. Now, the big thing for me that I noticed this year that makes me believe that they may be open to somebody like Bill Belichick in the building is that they brought Jimmy Johnson back in and put him in the Ring of Honor, meaning to me, they've noticed that Jerry has not done it has not been as good there without an alpha type head coach to balance Jerry Jones out and win championships. Now, is that marriage going to be all that long if they go there? Maybe not. But are they going to win Super Bowls? Look, what does Bill want? From where I sit, I don't know him personally. Bill wants to catch Don Shula and he wants to win more Super Bowls. What does Jerry want? More Super Bowls. Well, that seems to be a pretty aligned, set of things, right? So to me, it could work. That being said, I still don't know necessarily if you want to cut the cord on Mike McCarthy, who to me is still a pretty good football coach in the NFL. So that's where I get conflated on this, where I think that it's tough.
I agree with you. I mean, everyone out there that wants to throw their darts, it's such a difficult job, and he is a very good football coach. I mean, come on, what are we talking about? Of course he is. Now, whether he's getting long in the tooth and I'm not really sure if he wants to do it, we don't know that. Of course, we can't comment on that. But we also have to think about Dan Quinn there. I mean, Dan Quinn, I know that it was a tough finish, but Dan Quinn, we know what his abilities are. He is top-notch as well, and he goes into a situation. He's a very good leader. He's very good energy. Okay, we're all assuming that Seattle is going to pop that deal, right? Right? It's easy. It's a no-brainer. That's not necessarily the case. And, that's why I start thinking, there are the Joneses thinking about what they would do in Dallas, and they have a guy that they've kept there and honestly cajoled into staying over the last few years, right? I'm sure they've always had that on their mind too. Really it's so not unbelievably not difficult to love Dan Quinn as a coach and as an heir apparent coach. I've always thought that was going to be the case. I didn't know what was going to precipitate, but that he was going to be. Go ahead.
Well, let's bring up Quinn, because a lot of people wanted to throw daggers at Quinn after Sunday's game, and I think for very, natural reasons, right? Which is to say, let's say Quinn goes to Seattle. Who are you going to play twice a year if you're in Seattle? McVay, right, with the horizontal offenses, right, and San Francisco with the horizontal offenses, which are very LaFleurian, right? Or LaFleur is Shanahan-y and McVay-ian, right? And so, and I think of, if you're in Seattle and you're saying, okay, we're going to bring Dan Quinn, and Dan, people don't give him this much credit, but Dan was very much a cover 3, Legion of Boom, rush the passer with 4, covered, play coverage guy when he was in Seattle and then when he was with you in Atlanta. And he's evolved. And so people don't give him enough credit for that. Are we underrating the likelihood that Dan goes to a place like Seattle and is able to bring along a defensive coordinator that is able to evolve with him, or also that Dan Quinn is also able to evolve again, because he's evolved since he's been with you and he's been with Pete in because I think people said, okay, that's it for Dan Quinn. He's not going to be a head coach after he, was outwitted by Matt LaFleur. And I think that that's too simple of a conclusion to draw from what we saw Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's too simple. And Dan Quinn has definitely evolved. I mean, we say this, everything you learn along the way, we know this in business in general, right? You're going to learn with each iteration. You're going to learn with each mistake. If you're not open to making mistakes and understanding how important it is, then obviously you're lost in the ethos, at least in my mind, right? Mm-hmm. But I think Dan is exponentially a better coach now than he ever was. And I think he's learned, and I think he knows how he's going to approach the next level. Hands down, he should be a head coach in this league ASAP. And not, I mean, it's not like we have a job set up. I'm not concerned about that. I'm speaking real here. When you look at the other people out there that are talking about coaching, some available, some not, some young people coming up, there is no way that someone would say, okay, I'm just going to take this young guy just because he's been a coordinator 2 years and done good things. And that's not me throwing a dart at anyone in particular. I'm saying it's unbelievable the background that Dan has and the ability. There's a lot more than just the in-game game planning. There's the leadership side. There's the interaction side, the development side. He knows scheme. He knows approaching. There's an overall building leadership side that cannot be, I think, overestimated its importance. Go ahead.
Well, and I think and we've, I think what's cool is, you have some first-time head coaches, McVay and Shanahan, who are brilliant, right? When you talk about their way that they call plays and stuff. But we saw with McVay on Sunday night against Detroit, some of that in-game decision-making is still, they were left without timeouts because Sean McVay still doesn't really understand that a delay a game is preferable to giving up a timeout, right? And you've seen some older candidates like Todd Bowles, who, he had his turn at the plate as a head coach of the Jets. It didn't work. Now he's with Tampa Bay. A lot of people, especially in my community, I'm former bettor, a lot of bettors, a lot of people, in the analytics, they think Todd Bowles has made a lot of progress in-game decision-making. And it's not like you don't need to know that much football to understand some of those things. And you've seen Dan Quinn could go somewhere, right? And take the leadership things he's learned, take the defensive stuff, and then just call Sumer Sports and be like, hey, can I get a couple of your, and skill up there. And now all of a sudden he's that's a win you can add to your team if you go from being bottom half of the league to top half of the league. And now all of a sudden we're not talking about these things anymore vis-a-vis Dan Quinn.
A bit of a protraction here. Udit, if you're still listening, you'll find this interesting. And so will all of you out there who have obviously a affection towards data and football. Of course, that's why you're on here. So I won't mention the name, but it's not just been one. It's been 3 and 4 and 5 coaches who are out there that are interested in knowing more about data. This is exciting. That's why I said Udit. Mm-hmm. Exciting for you to know that more and more of these coaches are out there. Hey, I'm interviewing for this job. I need to tap in and really start realizing what I need to know about data as it evolves, so that if I ever get a head job, I'm able to say, look, I am not well versed in data as much as I should be. However, I'm interested in it. I'm open to it, and we are going to evolve with it. Consumer sports is going to be a really important part of that, Eric, going forward. Again, without mentioning the names, getting knocked on the door like that is really exhilarating to me, as it is getting knocked on the door by teams that are interested in having Sumer assess where they are in a positive way is a really interesting element that I think we offer. And so I just was amazed to see these head coaches or head coaching candidates really interested in taking it to another level. Anyhow, that's my protraction.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's really nice for us as well, because I'm just, I'm really happy to see, guys who I really respect at, like, there's just a lot of coaches that I know football at such a deep level that I don't, right? Like, and they know the things about how the one tech plays this run fit, and yet I, who don't know any of that stuff, understand how, to manage the clock at the end of the game. And it's like, this is worth 5% sometimes, this is worth 1%. Like, let me help you with the 5% sometimes. And so, I'm really, by the way, Tej, congratulations to your Lions. I think us at Sumer, we really can help these coaches. And then now, what I really like, and the same thing I can say to general manager, as well, as like, let that stuff get taken care of, so you can apply how brilliant you are to adjust, to evolving in your craft, and the things the reason that you've gotten there, why, you're not getting this, a guy like Dan Quinn, for example, is not getting the interview in Seattle, for example, because he's great at the numbers. He's getting that interview because he can call a defense. And like, let's focus on that, and let's let him learn that other side in a different format. You know what I'm saying? And like, I feel like that's a good way to go about it.
It's a good way to go about it. And again, this comes back to, I was talking to a head coach, former head coach, and a current head coach, who are perplexed that more of these young coaches who are moving through the ranks, who have great upside, aren't understanding how they can differentiate by, right now, especially this time of year, instead of, I'll be careful how I say this, but instead of, like, messing around doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing or wasting time, that they could be doing some professional development in order to differentiate themselves. And the best way to do that, not necessarily is just to sit down and game plan, just like I would say that to the general managers. It's learning more about how they can apply data, to their roster optimization, to their game planning, their in-game, whatever it may be. What an amazing way to go in there to interview next, or to bring into your organization as an assistant coach to your head coach and say, look, again, I'm selling here, but I've been sitting here dealing with the people at Sumer Sports, guys like Eric Eager, Sean Clement, Tej Seth. I mean, brilliant people who, of course, they're not claiming to be of the same understanding of football, but they can carry over a lot of really important, sort of academic approach that is only going to make this potential coach that much better. And he's going to bring to the table this open idea that there is more out there that they can tap into to be better, to be more consistent, to be more academically sound, in my mind, in their approach. I think it's a no-brainer. Differentiate. We always say that.
Yeah, for sure. And evolve. I mean, the fact is this game is going to change, and what, what is, what's good enough, 10 years ago is going to change, and you have to adapt. And I think that, what Bill, for example, with Belichick, for example, and it always comes back to him. I always think back to this, like, when he started, right, his big thing was with player acquisition. He was like, well, I want to run a 3-4 because there's only like two other teams in the NFL that run a 3-4. And so I can acquire one of the most important players in a 3-4, the nose tackle, because there's only two other teams that are competing for me for Ted Washington. Right. And so I can do that. And then as other teams started becoming more 3-4 heavy, right? Then he moved to the 4-3 and the Kyle Van Noy types and that. And it's like, that's cool. Like that, and allow the data to sort of drive you into those evolutions more quickly. Then we're cooking, right? Then you're even more ahead of your competition, as opposed to right now, what these guys are trying to do is they're trying to catch up to the sharp teams, right? Catch up to the sharp teams. Like use analytics to catch up to the sharp teams. But what we really want you to do is use us to get ahead of them, right? So that you have an edge, so that you can win your own way and win moving forward. This is going to be a short one, I know, because we don't have a ton of time. I just want to briefly talk. It was not a great finish to the season for the Philadelphia Eagles. They started 10-1. They won in Kansas City. They won against Buffalo in a rainstorm game where their kicker hit a 59-yard field goal in a monsoon, and then they lost 6 of the last 7. A lot of people were talking about Nick Sirianni. He's still the head coach. I think Howie Roseman, I think he's escaped a decent amount of the blame. I think that's a pretty good roster, even though a lot of injuries had happened. Both coordinators are gone. I think a lot of people underestimated how big of an effect that would be on the Eagles this year. That place, how do you, when you think about, like, because you kind of had a similar deal, like year after you lose a Super Bowl, the next year is kind of tough, right? And they the second year around, they're kind of waiting around a little bit. They lose some coordinators. And now it's like, what do they go from here? Like, I don't know if there's an easy way out. They're going to lose Jason Kelce to retirement. Jalen Hurts does not look the same physically. They make him run that sneak all the time, which makes him look physically worn. Their salary cap situation is not terrible, but it's also not super clean. The situation for me, when I look at the Eagles, is not like, I think Howie Roseman has some work to do.
Yes, has work to do, and one of the very best out there. So you can count on him getting very creative with how he's going to do this, and you know that he's gonna pull all punches, or sorry, not pull any punches, and pull all, or whatever the line is. What is it? No stops, pulled, whatever it is. I'm trying to say, he's going to be looking at it from a lot of different directions. By the way, and everyone else out there knows, one of the most sort of I would say analytically sound organizations. So they're going to be doing their job and their work on it. Okay. I just wanted to start with that. And then I'd say, look, the decision that he might make, let's talk about this. What do you think precipitates this discussion and or precipitates Howie making a legit move by removing Nick Sirianni from his position? Is it because of the downfall? Like, what is that bad? People are talking about the changes of coordinators and whose fault it was and who really wanted that to happen. What's out there in the media, first of all, on that? Just educate me a minute.
Well, I think people look at that roster and they say, this is a well put together roster. And so people are pretty upset that they took Sean Desai, who was the defensive coordinator, and then when they took him out and put Matt Patricia, they couldn't stop anything, right? They couldn't stop the Giants with Tyrod Taylor. They couldn't stop the Cardinals with Kyler Murray. They couldn't stop the Bucs with your favorite quarterback, Baker Mayfield. They couldn't stop anybody, right? And so they're looking at that and saying that that's like a fundamental breakdown in leadership at the head coaching position, right? And so they're looking at that and saying, okay, if it's not his fault, then whose fault, right? And then they're looking at, play calling on the offensive side of the ball with Thomas Brown, and they're saying, Thomas Brown's getting head coaching looks, but why isn't the offense operating at the efficiency that it was last season? Why is A.J. Brown taking all the Eagles stuff off of Instagram? Leadership, like they're looking at him and that he's yelling at Kansas City's crowd on the way out of beating them in a regular season game after you lost to them in the Super Bowl with a 10-point lead. Like, I think that there are questions about, is he just a front runner, right? Is he able to be a rah guy when you're winning? And is he a curl up guy when you're losing? Like, I think there's a lot of questions about him, and they're looking at Howie, who has a really good track record. They're also looking at Shane Steichen, who took a Colts team that doesn't have a great roster, Thomas, and they were one play away from winning that division against a good Texans team that won a playoff game. And then they look at Arizona with that had the worst roster in football that was pretty competitive all year, right, with Gannon. And they're saying, like, what do you do here, right? Because everybody else seems to be pretty good.
Yeah.
And you're kind of making – and every kind of key decision you've made has kind of flopped. And that's kind of the thesis. Now, I think he makes good in-game decisions. Like, I think he goes for good fourth downs. I think he generally speaking handles his timeouts properly. So I'm kind of more mixed on him. But if you're not going to call plays, right, obviously – and you're going to be kind of more of a rah-rah guy, if your team quits on you, it's really hard to get that back. And so to me, that's, I think, one of the thesis for thinking about moving on. That's kind of where I'm torn on it. And this is the other part where I'm torn on is the Luries have money, right? And they're willing to spend. And you are in an off season, Thomas, where you have two coaches and in fact, three, if you count Vrabel, three established winning coaches, Belichick, Vrabel, and Harbaugh, that money will speak to. And so, like, that's, I think, the other part is that there is a real opportunity for the Philadelphia Eagles to bring somebody of real stature into the building that can, obviously capitalize on a roster that was just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Look, you mentioned a little bit earlier, there are people out there with track records, right? I guess I want to cap it with this, meaning there are fan bases out there that are very quick to flip and take shots at the people in charge. I get it. Been there. We all are either on the hot seat or not on the hot seat because you won a Super Bowl, right? The easiest way to not be on the hot seat is by winning a Super Bowl. During those in-between times, there are some really good football people out there that you, as a fan base, and I think media as well, like, have to give them credit when they have a track record of doing the right things. Howie just didn't become a dumbass. That's ridiculous. I mean, Howie is regarded as one of the very best out there. He pushes it. He has the right people around him, meaning he pushes ideas, he pushes thoughts, he pushes the money situation. He's going to think about it in the right way. He's got the right football people around him on the evaluation side, and they need to just move forward. What I'm saying is, just because this didn't work out this year, yeah, it's an organizational. You have to take it as an organizational blame. But all you Philadelphia people, you were damn blessed to have a guy like Howie running that show there, and having a guy like Jeffrey Lurie who could easily abort missions, but they don't. And so, again, this is not just about backing up those guys. It's the reality. There are other teams out there that have some horses' asses at the helm, and we won't get into that right now.
Yeah, I like the fact. I mean, and I do and I don't, right? I like the fact that there are ownership groups and there are general managers that will stop at nothing to bring a team a championship. I also, we've obviously seen it in some places in the league where that means instability, which can obviously – stability matters a lot, as we've seen in Green Bay. And we saw that they're a shining light, year in and year out, right? Gutekunst kind of held the line for years and years and years. And we're seeing now why not folding, to Aaron Rodgers every whim has, kept them in contention even amidst tough times. So it's a true balancing act, and I think that's one of the reasons why both Dallas and Philadelphia haven't made moves yet, and we're still to Wednesday after tough playoff losses for both teams. So this has been fun, Thomas. It's been again 38 years old. I can't think of a better way to spend my birthday than to talk football with you. I've gotten to talk football with you all day. I got to watch scouts, scout players. I've gotten to hang out inside when it's 16 degrees outside. What better, what better way to spend my day? Thomas, do you have anything parting words before this weekend? What's your favorite game? I'm not going to ask you to analyze game, but of the 4 games this weekend, which one are you looking forward to the most?
I mean, look, you have me perplexed about Baker Mayfield, right? When I keep thinking about that, I'm like just blown away that we are here. And we haven't had a chance to give Jason Light his due.
Man. Yeah, he's phenomenal.
I am so excited for him. that, I used to say it. Remember when I went on those tours and I was evaluating, or not evaluating, but interviewing. And I always said, the GM who wins the Super Bowl is the world's best Super Bowl for that year. And yet there are people like Jason who had a Super Bowl in 2 or 3 years or whatever it is, but he's making moves. And what he did this year, ballsy moves, that organization and how he led them through that. That's a pretty darn good deal.
Well, and I'm going to go on my soapbox for a brief second.
Yeah.
Because we talked about on this show, and I don't mean to demean anybody, but the Saints and the Falcons had the 2 easiest schedules in the NFL. And the Saints signed Derek Carr, right? Which is like the quintessential, like, just kind of get on the green, right? Win an easy division kind of quarterback. And the Falcons drafted a running back, which is like the quintessential, like, we're going to be a good, we're going to feast on. And the Buccaneers, they took all the lumps this year. The $35 million dead for Brady. They have $70 million dead on their cap this year. They got Baker Mayfield in an $8 million salary this year.
Yeah.
So that comes to show, Thomas, right? Don't try to be average. Just do the right thing. And sometimes just do the right thing. Just do the right thing. Because if you try to be average, you most of the time are going to fail anyway, right? So just do the right thing. And Jason Wright did the right thing. I'm going to call him Jason Wright from now on. Jason Wright did the right thing.
Jason Wright. That's good.
He did the right thing. And he said, the party's over on this old roster. I'm gonna cut bait on a lot of these older players. I'm gonna take the dead money. I'm gonna draft player. I'm gonna draft Logan Hall, Kalijah Cansey. I'm gonna make solid moves, right? And I'm gonna get a quarterback in here who may suck. He may not, right? I'm gonna get a coordinator here, Dave Canales, who's done a good job with some mid guys, some Geno Smiths and all this stuff. And they went 9-8, which is fine, and it's good enough to beat teams that are trying to be average, like the Falcons and the Falcons and the Saints. And now they're in the divisional round. They're 1 win away against Detroit from making the conference championship game with Baker Mayfield.
Incredible. And look, and so we're talking about Jason Wright, light. Now we're also talking about Todd Bowles. I mean, they were talking about removing him from his job. What, midseason or whenever it was? I again, you might have said that earlier. I'm like blown away by his resilience. We talk about that, right? It is a part of a coach that is so important, and I'm really happy for him as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Bowles, there was some discussion, and I think it's unequivocal that he saved his job. And I think it's unequivocal that Baker Mayfield probably earned a second contract with the Bucs. We'll see how that works out. It generally doesn't, right, when you pay a midliner or quarterback like that. But that doesn't mean they can't have fun now. So this has been great. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for the kind words today. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tell somebody that you love about this show so that we can get some more listeners. We will continue to have this show as needed throughout the off season. Make sure that on Tuesdays you listen to Stats and Schemes with Sean Syed and Tej Seth. For Thomas Dimitroff, for Eric Eager, this has been the Sumer Sports Show.